In our 78th season, the Palm Beach Civic Association expands its communication outreach with a state-of-the-art television studio. We call it Studio 33480, the zip code for the beautiful island of Palm Beach. Sponsored by Finley Galleries, our goal is to bring you in-depth interviews with the most colorful and knowledgeable personalities on the island. And now, our host.
Welcome to Studio 33480. I'm William Kelly. With me today is the leader of one of the best-known and longest-serving institutions in the history of the town of Palm Beach. Please welcome Carol Rose, editor of the Palm Beach Daily News. Carol, thank you so much for joining us here.
Oh, thank you for having me, William.
You have been editor of the Palm Beach Daily News since 2019. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to take the position that you have at the Daily News?
Well, first off, I'd say serendipity. I came over to the Daily News after the previous editor left, and they needed someone in an interim position. And so at first I hesitated, then I was like, sure, I could do this. Because to be honest, previously the Daily News was not on my radar. As you know, I had been at the Post 20 years prior to that, where I had served in various roles: assistant suburban editor, community editor, a senior editor on the production desk, copy editor. I've done a bunch of stuff at the Post. And I was content at the Post, which at the time I was in the role of community editor for the northern and western regions of the county. And so when the editor left and they needed someone to be an interim, I said, sure, I'll do it, figuring it would just be a temporary thing. And so I moved over to the island, supposedly for an interim job. And then I met you, and I met Daryl and Shannon and Carla and Jan, Damon and Megan, the entire team. And I fell in love with the team. And I also fell in love with the work and the town. And because initially I thought, oh, it's Palm Beach. How interesting can it possibly be? Oh my gosh. I had no idea what I had signed up for. I mean, it was just a mile a minute. I couldn't catch my breath, and I'm like, I love this energy. And so I thought, well, I'll go for this job, and I did get the job. And so after being interim I started as interim in June, and then I got the position in August. And I think the official announcement came out in September or something. And it's been an absolute fun ride ever since. I love my job. I get up every day loving what I do, and that makes it worthwhile.
What have you found to be the most interesting or the most surprising thing about Palm Beach, working in the town, covering the town?
I guess I'm just amazed at how much happens here. Because from across the bridge when I was at the Post, like I said, the island really was not on my radar. The Daily News also was not on my radar particularly. I knew it existed, and I would give it a cursory glance every now and again, but I'm just like amazed at how much news happens here. And so that I think is probably my biggest source of surprise, the vibrancy of the town council. The fact that sometimes they do stuff, they go out on a limb, cutting edge stuff. For example, trying to push for green initiatives, trying to ban plastic bags, for example. And they get shut down, but they keep going, and they go back and I'm just like, it's a lot. It's a lot, and the society scene. And of course, as you know, everything was heightened and took on a whole new dimension when the pandemic hit.
Sure. Such big changes in the newspaper industry over the last 10 years and more. Newsrooms have gotten so much smaller. How has that affected how you get the town covered?
Oh, William, it's been challenging, and that's understating it. When I came over, the team was much smaller than it had been in previous years. And then by the time, so I came on in June 2019, the pandemic hit in March 2020. And by December that year, the company, Gannett, who had taken us over, offered a buyout. And so I lost two wonderful staffers. And that broke my heart. And then shortly after, we lost a part-time staffer. So we have been struggling. And this past season, we ended up with covering the season a reporter short, which meant I had to pivot and not just edit, but I had to report. But that's not unusual to me. A lot of newsrooms are facing that particular challenge of trying to do the job with fewer people. That's just a fact of the business. And the pandemic didn't help either. And so it's been a ride. But the what it means is that we now have to prioritize things. And so I guess if I want one message to come across from this interview is the fact that we have had to change the way we do things. So things that we normally would have covered in times past when there was plenty in terms of staffing, we have to say maybe we can't cover that in quite the same way, or we might not cover it at all because we just don't have the resources. And the staff I have is amazing, and during the season they go a mile a minute. Their productivity is through the roof. And maybe I'm biased, but I'd say compared to other newsrooms, I mean, they work so hard, so fast to keep that pace. And so I have to be mindful of that because they matter to me and I care about them. So I have to say, okay, let's be realistic. What can we do and still get the job done? And what can we not do and still serve the town, which as you know, is our primary mandate.
Sure.
To produce stories that people in the town are interested in, want to read, and the things they care about. And so we have to prioritize that. And I think we do a good job most days. And I know sometimes not everyone is happy because they want to know why we didn't cover their event, but we don't have the bandwidth. And so as the person who has to make those choices, I know that sometimes people won't be happy, but I'm doing the best I can. So, you know, William, I care about my staff first and foremost.
Absolutely. I do know that. From working there and having the pleasure of working under you, I think, for about a year and a half or so, I think. You've mentioned the pandemic a couple of times, and so in the midst of all these other challenges, you're there less than a year, and then that's the end of March 2020. Offices shut down, people have to begin working from home, Zoom meetings, all these changes. What was that like?
Yes, so the pandemic, William, it upended everything because we initially were told we would be home for 2 weeks. And coincidentally, the lease for our space on the island also ended that month. So we went home for 2 weeks and we were close to signing the lease for another space on the island. Figuring, okay, we'd be home for 2 weeks, we'd get back, we'd finish up the lease, we'd be back in the office, and 2+ years still, we're still not back in the office full time. We never got a new lease on another space on the island, so now we are housed at the offices of the Palm Beach Post on Dixie Highway at Dixie and Belvedere. And for the most part, people continue to work from home. I go into the office 2 days a week. And most people are expected to be in the office 2 days a week. But I suspect that going forward, what we will have is a hybrid of that. We're a couple days in the office, the rest of the time from home. And I believe it works because I think during the pandemic, when we worked solely from home, people showed that it could be done and it could be done effectively. Because I don't think readers on the island ever missed a beat or thought they missed anything as the pandemic raged. Because when March 2020, we were like churning stories like crazy, and we were churning, and every new development, the town council has closed the beach. We're there. You know, there's a curfew, state of emergency. We were on top of everything. And with each twist and turn, you know, Maggie Zeidman, we were calling Maggie, we were calling Kirk, we were calling Mayor Coniglio. We were just, you know, we were on top of it. With the police, Chief Caristo, what's the latest, you know, people on the beach violating curfew. We were on top of every story throughout.
What do you see as being the biggest challenges facing Palm Beach going forward next year or two?
The town?
The town, yes.
Well, obviously, I think obviously growth with all this, the sales. I mean, the real estate market is crazy and continues to be crazy. So I think from where I sit, I think some of the challenges would be for, the Landmarks Board to make sure, because people who move in sometimes want to knock down houses or make changes, and some perhaps are not familiar with the role of the Landmark Commission and the Architectural Commission.
Yeah.
And so they might want to do things that they're not going to be able to do. And so that could get testy, and I think in terms of the town, trying to navigate how to deal with rising seas. That's one of their big long-term issues, as well as, the conversation with water. Where does the town go from here with its water supply, with its
Sure.
drinking water supply? Stick with West Palm, explore other options. What's practical? So I don't know if those are among the biggest challenges, but I think they certainly will be challenges going forward, just from my perspective. Someone else with another view or access to other information might have some other things that they think are more important or should be up there with those things. But off the cuff, those are some of the things that come to mind.
Carol Rose, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I know our viewers have enjoyed this, and it's been very illuminating. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure talking to you with him. It's good. It feels like old time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time on Studio 33480.
Studio 33480 is brought to you by the Palm Beach Civic Association, our sponsor, Finley Galleries, and our viewers. We welcome your thoughts on how our programming can best serve our members and residents.